Hello, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Faith Storms. I'm a licensed social worker, therapist, and today I want to share a little bit about IFS, Internal Family Systems. So, this is a therapeutic approach that has been around a little while now. I don't know exactly how long. It is very useful. I've been getting some training on it over the past couple of years. It is very useful in so many ways, so I wanted to share just the basics of it. I have been working with a lot of my clients on this. I am doing this work myself to discover, understand the landscape inside and the different parts and different roles. So let me just explain. So internal family systems came out of family systems therapy, which talks about how in a family constellation that different people have different roles. And when one thing changes for one person, everything changes. It's like a mobile. And I believe the internal family systems theory work came out of all of that. I think it's connected somehow. I don't recall the exact history. One of the trainings I took talked about it. I don't have those notes in front of me. But internal family systems theory basically talks about how we have different parts inside, which are different aspects of ourselves at different ages, and that there is there is multiplicity. So it is normal for most people to have these like different parts and to feel like there are different parts of themselves. And so when the parts are communicating well and working well together, it's a good system. It's when parts are not working well together or don't know each other or are in conflict that problems come. So parts can show up in thoughts and different points of view and physical sensations and different emotions, in different memories and different roles. And according to the IFS model, parts are not metaphors. They're not unidimensional. They are not created by trauma necessarily. I mean, trauma can have an impact, definitely. They're not intractable, which means they're not stuck. And they're not to be eliminated or battled. This is the biggest thing. And this is what, when I'm working with somebody and when we're talking about parts, I constantly say, like, you need a working relationship with every part of yourself. This is really important. And they talked about 6 F's: find, focus, flesh out, feel towards, fear, and befriend. Why is fear there? So it's you want to explore the parts, you want to make friends with them, you want to understand who they are, what they do, what the roles are. And there are 8 C's. So they talk about, internal family systems talks about a core self, that we have this core self energy and this core self identity. That's like, the way I hear that and experience that is like, that's our soul. Like, that is who you are and like sort of who you're meant to be, despite what's happened to you, despite trauma, despite life. Like, that's your core self. So they talk about this self, which is your core. And there's 8 C's of self leadership. We need to have curiosity. We need compassion, confidence, creativity, connectedness, courage, calmness, and clarity. These are all very good things to work towards. So when it comes to parts, there are common roles of parts. So there are protective parts and there are protected parts. So the protective parts are called managers or firefighters. And those labels just talk about what they basically do. So managers are just what the label says. They try to manage situations. A manager part could be a very controlling part. It could be a very overworking part. It could be I'll handle this, I'll do it myself, you know, part, because they're trying to prevent problems. They're trying to prevent the drama, the trauma, the disappointment. And then there are firefighter parts. Now, firefighter parts are parts that are reactive. So a firefighter part might be, in the case, let's say somebody is struggling with addiction. A firefighter part might be the part of themselves that actually like goes and gets high because it's been so overwhelming. The manager parts have not managed it well enough, and it's a crisis point. And the firefighters like, screw this. I know how we can feel better. Let's go do it. So firefighters are not always don't always make the best choices. However, their choices do in the moment solve the problem. And that's the thing, when you're looking at your internal world, it's easy to be judgmental. It's easy to be, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. And we may not like all the outcomes. However, every part and every role is adaptive. Every part that we have inside is there for a reason. And at some point, well, and even today, it still may be serving a purpose. Now, we may decide that's not the healthiest way to go. We may decide, I don't want to continue to do that, and that's fine. But we need to be kind and compassionate to all of these parts. They're there for a reason, and their role is there for a reason. Like they didn't come out of nowhere, the protective parts. And then there's protected parts, the exiles. So the protected parts are often very young, very wounded, very traumatized. And these parts are holding the pain. These parts have experienced a lot of pain in life. And the protective parts are trying to protect them from being hurt again. Now, again, we can look at this and say, wow, that's really not working. And that's fine. And that's what therapy is for, to go, gee, what parts of my system are not really functional? Or how do I want to change this to become more functional and healthier? And that's fine. But the first thing, the most important thing is all these parts need to be heard. It's really, really, really important that all parts begin to have a voice and be heard and be listened to. So managers work to avoid triggering exiles. Right, they don't want the hurt parts to hurt. They seek security through control. They carry the burdens of responsibilities, and they absolutely deserve an appreciation and respect. They are working hard. So common manager roles are sentries, like they are looking for the bad stuff. Critics, even self-critics. They're analyzers. They tend to be pessimistic because they're always looking for the next bad thing. They're caretakers, perfectionists, warriors, and strivers. Now, firefighters, when all else fails, reactively spring into action when vulnerable feelings threaten to overwhelm the system. They are impulsive. They tend to douse pain or distract and escape. They're distraction and escapes. They are often feared and judged socially. And firefighters can be self-harming parts, suicidal parts, drug abusing parts, any quote unquote bad behavior, because for the moment it takes the focus off the part that's in pain. Now, exiles can threaten the system because they're desperate to be heard and rescued. They're often frozen in time. A lot of exiles are very young parts, they're child parts. They're very sensitive, they get overwhelmed with emotions, they can hold intense burdens, absolutely, and they can trigger firefighters. If an exile, if a very young wounded part starts to feel and starts to get overwhelmed, then the firefighters are going to jump in. So, what do exiles need to heal? They need a relationship with self-energy, acceptance, safety, not to feel alone. They need to have their stories heard and witnessed and understood. They may need to blend their emotions and energies in order to fully heal, to feel fully witnessed. They often sense the need that things could have or should have done differently, been gone differently in the past. They need to let go of beliefs and feelings that they carry from these experiences. They need to reconnect with qualities that they've lost or disconnected from. Exiles need to be safe and need to grow. Sometimes grow up, but other times just grow where they are. So a child exile may not become a grown up, but they need to be a safe, healthy child, not the wounded part, not the exiled part. I hope that makes sense. So, overall, the goal of IFS, internal family systems, is to liberate parts from their extreme roles. Absolutely. To restore trust and self leadership. Remember, the self, they talk about self energy in IFS is like your true self, your true core self. To restore trust and self leadership, I said that. To achieve balance, harmony, and wholeness. Yes, yes. And to bring more self energy to external systems. Now, so that's the basics of IFS. On the personal note, what I have found over the past couple of years working with this type of structuring is it is so helpful. It is so useful. And here is what I have noticed and what I share with people. Our internal children, our child parts, whether they're wounded or whether they're healthy kid parts, hold energy. This is my experience. They hold our energy. So they've got lots of life force energy. So if you are not in touch with those younger parts of yourself, then either you're in conflict with them. So if you don't know who's inside and you don't know what they need, and then they're not getting what they need, then you can bet they are sabotaging you. This is my experience. They are trying to get what they need, but you, the adult, are not listening. And so they're going to try to get what they need any way they can. And let me tell you, that's going to mess up your adult life in some way, shape, or form. The best thing we can do is begin to create a dialogue with our inner self, with our inner parts, and begin to discover who is inside, who are these younger parts. They may not all be wounded. You may have some wounded parts. I think most of us do. But they may not be. And if they are wounded, you need to know so that you can figure out how to support them, how to help them wherever they are. And let me tell you, helping and supporting is not always that big and dramatic. Listening is the biggest thing. Asking about them, checking in with them on a regular basis. That is what I've been doing. So I have a little notebook. That's my current personal little notebook. I started this October of 2022 with one particular intention. But in general, it's just been like for my health and wellness and for different topics. So as I've been going along, and I don't write every day, and I do different things. Sometimes I write my dreams in this, and sometimes I write some like intentions or plans. The other thing I do in here is every so often I'm like, I'm going to do a check-in, and I literally do that. I currently have 3 younger parts that I check in with to see what is going on. And I just do that. It does not take long. I just sit and ask each of them, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What do you need? What do you like? Like, what's going on that you're happy about? Is there anything I can do for you? Like, it's really simple. And so here's an example. So on December 20th, I did a little check-in. So I checked, and I discovered that, so I had recently had a dream about otters, and I don't ever remember dreaming about otters before. It was very interesting. It was a good dream. Most of my dreams are good. And I realized, the otters were for my 5-year-old, and she wants more play, and she wants more things that are playful. Okay, cool. And then at the time, I checked in with my 11-year-old, and she wanted more sleep and books. She wanted books. She loves books. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I can do that. That's it. Like, it wasn't, and I mean, it took probably 2 to 5 minutes to check in. Self care is not as complicated as we sometimes make it. Now, if you want to spend an hour, working with your inside parts, that's cool. But you know what? I don't always have an hour to spend, and you don't always need an hour. So doing regular check-ins with your younger parts is really important. And then sometime after December, oh yes, oh yeah, a little after, about a week later, then I discovered a teenage part. So yeah, that was interesting. So now I have 3 younger parts that I periodically check in with, and just to see, like, what are they doing? How's everything going? But in general, my energy is good, my flow is good, like things are good, which probably means my younger parts are good. But I don't assume that. Like, they still need to be listened to. They still need to be interacted with. They still need to be supported. So that's the basics of internal family systems. Obviously, if somebody has a lot of firefighters, protectors, or a lot of very damaged exiles, it's a more complicated process. I mean, at this point, I'm 53. I've been doing self-help and therapy and improvement for all my life. Certainly since my early 20s. So, I mean, I've got, oh my goodness, 30 years of work on myself. So, nothing really awful is going on. So I don't have the need for intensive interactions or intensive interventions with all of this. Some people do. If you do, there are definitely folks out there that are trained in internal family systems that can be helpful. And even if you're not like super damaged or don't think you're super damaged, it's still very, very useful to like do some checking inside and discover who's there and how you can make some better connections. Many years ago, there was a book which it was a pre-runner of all this, called Self-Parenting, and I don't have it in front of me. I don't have the name of the author, John somebody. It is still in print. Now, I found this book when I was in my 20s, so this was over 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Excellent book, really. Pollard, I think the last name's Pollard. Excellent book, Self-Parenting. And it talks about having conversations, adult you to child you. It is internal family systems. It really is. So if you want a practical model of like how to begin these conversations with parts inside, the book Self-Parenting is superb. So I hope that was helpful. Wow, that was a long video. If you got through this, good for you. And I will see you all next time.